Hello, welcome to Chuys Education Corner. This is Richard Marquez, aka Chuy. You see me out there somewhere, you just yell, "Hey Chuy." One question I get asked often is the question about new teachers. How do you work with new teachers? It's very critical for new teachers to be successful on day one because it establishes their routines, it establishes a feeling of success, and that feeling of success may keep them in the business for a lot longer. If they feel, when people are successful, they'll stay wherever they're working. So what I tell them is, look, teaching is a profession that requires for you to understand the scientific method to teach human beings. So when you look at teaching today, all the lesson plans or the plans that the teachers use for every class that they teach are generated by the company that produces the curriculums. So the teachers never get a real background on how a lesson plan is truly built, so that they themselves have an understanding of how a lesson plan is built, so they get a feeling for exactly how and why and the way it should be delivered. And so usually what I have to do is I have to take them back and look at their lesson plans, pull them down off of the computer or just look at them on the computer, and then outline for them the basic steps. The first one is, look at this lesson. What's the goal? What are the kids supposed to be able to accomplish when you finish this goal? When you teach them, what is it you're teaching them? What are they supposed to be able to do at the end? And how do you prove that you actually were successful doing what you said you were going to do? So that's the first step, breaking down those goals and seeing to it that they understand why they're teaching this stuff. And so a lot of times you'd be surprised that teachers just do it because they're told to do it, which has a negative effect, because if you don't really believe in what you're doing, you're not going to do a very good job with it. So they have to basically learn to look at what the expectations are and then begin to work off of those expectations. The next step is you look at your materials, and they give you one of the big things about these new curriculums is they give you all these materials and all these resources. But again, if you don't know what the materials are supposed to be doing for you and doing for the kids, then you just basically teach them without any real direction. So you have to know your goals, and then you have to align those materials to achieve those goals. So the next thing I say is, okay, so how are you going to demonstrate this stuff to them? How are you going to show them? Because you have to show them what the expectation is. You can't just throw it out there and say, do this. Here, let me show you. Like the algebra teacher I had at one point. He'd walk in the classroom. He'd put two sample problems on the board. He'd do them. He'd say, all right. And then he'd do the problems. And then he'd say, okay, now do pages so-and-so out of your book, do page so-and-so and so-and-so. And then he'd leave the classroom. And so at that point, you were left to fend for yourself if you're going to pass this algebra class. And basically, we were teaching ourselves. Needless to say, a C in that class was pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned. Because to be honest with you, I don't know how much algebra I really learned. So that's my example. If you just show them a couple of things and so on, and then you just turn them loose, they don't necessarily know what it is you want them to do. So you basically have to get them to explain to you what they're supposed to be doing. So before you turn them loose, talk with them and say, all right, so what are you going to do? Show me. Come up here, you so-and-so and so. Show me what you're going to do. And then ask the others, is he right? Is she right? Is that what I asked you to do? Does everyone understand what it is? Who doesn't understand? The rest of you go to work and you go over to the student and you sit down with that student, or you work next to them and you say, okay, this is what I want you to do. So that every one of your kids knows what the expectation is. And then you don't sit down, you walk around and monitor your lesson plan. See, that lesson plan gives you directions as to what you should be doing. You walk around and you look for the kid who's struggling, who still maybe didn't understand what it is you explained for them to do. But you look for that child who's struggling and you help them make that transition, and you help them understand that fine point or the basic that you're trying to get them to do for you. What you're doing is you're looking to see if they're achieving what it is you want them to achieve, so they can show you that they learned what you were trying to teach them from the very beginning. So the lesson plan is a roadmap, and that's what I basically talk to the teachers about. It's how your class period is supposed to run. It should even have minutes on it. And a lot of the lesson plans do. They'll say, do this for 10 minutes, do this for 15 minutes. But don't take it literal. Don't set a time, don't set a clock. But remember, you need to keep pace, because that pace is critical to you. You won't, the kids won't lose focus, and they'll keep working if you maintain a good pace and you maintain good time limits. But your lesson plan needs to outline all of those things. So once I get a teacher, or a new teacher, or even a teacher who's struggling, once I get them to understand the importance of the lesson plan and the delivery of that lesson plan, that's the first thing that begins to put them on the road to being successful in the classroom. It's not everything, but with that kind of a start, your possibilities become very good to achieve what it is you're trying to achieve in that classroom. So don't just do the lesson plan as it's written in the curriculum guide. Don't just follow it like a drone. It's not going to work. It will not work unless you put your personal touch to it and your value to it. It's not going to work. So lesson plans are extremely important in the field of teaching. It is your roadmap. And so learning how to write one will help you with making decisions about what you do when one is given to you and written by somebody else. So that's my first direction, and the first thing I do whenever I'm working with a beginning teacher, a struggling teacher. And I've had very good success with it. Thank you. Hello. Welcome back to Chuys Educational Corner. This is Richard Marquez, better known as Chuy. Today I wanted to talk to you about a thing that I experienced last week. I was in a meeting waiting to go to the teacher's classroom because they were at lunch. And I just happened to be sitting in the corner while some kind of professional development team or something meets. They meet once a week to work over their test scores, to talk about their lesson plans, to talk about things that are instructional in nature, which makes perfect sense. But if one teacher managed to take over the entire the entire session, and all she wanted to talk about was how the kids kept turning off her lights, and she couldn't leave them alone. And then she basically admitted at one point that she left them alone, which was amazing to me, because that's a pretty serious thing, to leave children alone by themselves. Anything could happen. But anyway, so it was kind of like deflection. She was deflecting all the problems onto the kids. And so I kept thinking, wait a minute, aren't you in charge of that classroom? Isn't that your classroom? basically their behavior is your behavior. And that's what people don't understand. Kids pretty well mirror teachers' behaviors. If teachers are disorganized and teachers show that they really don't have a real interest for what they're doing, the kids don't either. And if the teachers don't respect the kids, well, the kids don't respect the teachers either. So the kids, once they figure it out, will definitely make your life miserable. So how do you help a teacher like that? The other thing they got to me is their voice is a little whiny. And so I can imagine what the kids are thinking when they hear that voice yelling at them. Those voices set those kids off, by the way. Those loud, kind of shrilly kind of voices. Yeah, they have the opposite effect. When you yell at them, it has the opposite effect. But anyway, so I kept thinking, okay, so how would I begin to work with a teacher like this? Or can I work with a teacher like this? Sometimes it all depends on, does the teacher want to work with you? Or are you able to develop trust with that person? It requires trust to be able to help anyone. Nobody's going to listen to you unless they trust you, or unless they respect you. So I thought to myself, yeah, I think I could. Because in actuality, I believe most people, all of us, want to be successful. I don't think any of us really want to fail. There's some people who just want to do things their way and refuse to change things. And like this one teacher, blame everybody else for their problems. But the reality is, the majority of people want to be successful. So if you can provide them ways and methods for them to become successful, they'll work with you. So the first thing I would do is I'd go visit the classroom and sit and observe. And I know what I'm going to find. I'm going to find a complete lack of planning. That's right. Lack of planning. So kids know when what they're being given to do is not of value. They know when it's all busy work. And they know when it's too much busy work and not enough work. So the first stage always, and I'll keep going back and back and back and back, and you'll hear me harp on this thing till it bores you a little about planning. If you don't know what you want them to do, they don't know either. And so if they don't have anything to do, guess what? They're going to take it out on you. And they're going to use that time for their benefit, not yours. So, and principals know which teachers they are. They're the ones who send the kids to you all the time. I remember I used to see students disciplined from 2 teachers in the entire school. I'd see their kids more often than I'd see anybody else's. And it was always back to the same old story. The kids were bored and didn't have anything to do. So first thing is I'd sit down with her. If she's willing to work with me, we'd sit down and work on our lesson plans. And how to begin to work with respecting the kids and so that they can respect her or him. It doesn't matter whether it's a male or female. One isn't better than the others. Poor teaching is poor teaching. So, yeah, sit down, start working with them on their lesson plans. And if you have a child in a class like that, you're getting phone calls from the principal or the teacher a lot. Something needs to be done. And so to the benefit of a lot of schools, they usually call somebody and say, can you come and work with this individual teacher? Can you come and see what you can do about helping them? And in many instances, school districts have those kinds of people. But in some districts, they don't have that kind of resourcing. So the principal has to do it. And so the principal has to know how to write a lesson plan. Do you guys know how to write a lesson plan, principals? When's the last time you sat down with one of those lesson plans that they get today and figure out how to teach it? You know, it might be a good idea for you to sit down and do one and figure out how to do it so that in the end, you can explain it to your teachers. Yeah, that's right. Leading requires you knowing where you're going. Just like the teacher needs to know where they're going to lead their kids, you need to know where you're going or what you expect in order for you to lead your teachers. Uh, Start looking at those lesson plans and see if you can figure them out. It's just a little message from Chuy. I'll see you again on the next time around. Take care.